So Dialab isn't my first brand. Dialab is like my fourth brand. So before I moved back to Nigeria, I had a brand called Ricky Frogs. And then when I moved back, I started a brand called Grey Projects with my partner, Ubida. And we ran that for 10 years. In the course of running that, I also started another brand called Ricky Simone, which is supposed to be similar to Grey, but even more affordable. And so all of those brands are accumulation of experiences, of lessons learned over the course of, I would say, 15 years that led to what you now see as Dialab. So Grey, for example, was a ready-to-wear brand that I was working in a bank and I wanted to be able to create the kind of products I wanted to wear. I wanted to go shopping. I wanted to be able to go into a store and just say, oh, I want some retail therapy today. I want to buy a skirt, I want to buy a shirt, and just like something small. I don't have to go to a tailor. I don't have to, and just imagine that this was pre-Instagram, pre the incidents of online shopping, the real we experience it now. So at that point, it was like, oh, I just want to go and buy something nice. And so we tried to run that for 10 years. And in the course of it, one of the biggest lessons I learned was that what we tried to conceive in Grey was, it was beautiful. It had its own cult following. But for me and my own evolution and growth over the 10 years, it didn't feel natural anymore. It didn't feel that like it came from my experience of being in Lagos. It came from an experience of being in London. I wanted to shop. I wanted to create as I was in London versus who I was in Lagos. And so it was like, this is not working. It was too much conflict with everything around me. Too much conflict with my tailors, too much conflict with my suppliers, my consumers. It just wasn't seized properly. And so I had to shut it down and had to go through a process of mourning, like really feeling deeply like I had failed at something that I had been doing for 10 years. I mean, the evidence that it wasn't a failure was there, but you can't tell someone that this is not how you should feel. So I had to go through that process. And I really was fully finished with fashion. I was like, I don't want to own a product. I don't want to be in a position where I'm having to engage with clients, with tailors, with suppliers. I was completely done. And then lockdown happened, and a lot of projects I was working on, they sort of stalled because everyone was sort of trying to figure out what they were doing. And it just became a space to sort of experiment and just reimagine, like, oh, I've been obsessed with kimonos for as long as I can remember. I've been obsessed with traditional dress for as long as I can remember. And I was like, oh, you know what? This is a no pressure, it's lockdown, nothing is happening. Let me just experiment with my friends. And it just sort of took on a life of its own. I was wearing it in a Zoom meeting. Friends are like, oh, what are you wearing? I want to buy one. I was like, oh, you can order it. I can make it for you. And then that's sort of how Dialab started. And I didn't even have a name for the first 6 months. It was just something I was doing. But here we are now.
Wow, that's beautiful. So it started off as a community before growing into a brand. That's very beautiful.
Yeah, I like to think of my first 20 buyers as like my crowdfunding. Like they almost helped me start the brand, because I was like, you know what, you have to pre-order, you have to pay me first before I go and do this work. So they started the brand with me.
That's beautiful. Thank you for letting us know that. Could you also share with us, elaborate more on the brand's ethos and approach to fashion? Like, what are your values and principles that govern your creative process and your business decision making?
I think for us at Dialab, one of the biggest things, I mean, we have lots of different things that guide us, but the overarching principle is that the process is the product for us. We have to always hack the process. Like, how do we create? How do we order fabric? How do we design? How do we produce? How do we get it to the client? What is that process, and how are we improving that process every single time we do it? What we did last week is not what we're going to do this week. So in terms of, for example, one of the things when I started Dye Lab was it had to be, when you go through the process of watching the clothes being dyed, start watching the artisans doing it yourself, you really become very attached to the fabric. Like, you don't want any part of it to go to waste. You want to use every single part of it. And that's kind of what led to the sort of designs that we create, where it's like everything has to be straight lines so that there's no waste. Everything has to always be reusable in one way. Whatever is left over must be able to go into another process. So what is our process of cutting? What is our process of designing to ensure that we don't leave anything on the cutting floor when we're done? So process is a core for us in terms of everything that we create. Or if someone says you need to make a skirt today, we have to ask ourselves, what is the process of making a skirt that allows, first of all, a lot of people to be able to wear the same product. So it can't just be my younger sister or my grandmother. It has to be across the board. Like, how can everybody wear this skirt? How do we make, for example, there's a mini skirt that Ozzy was like, we need to make a mini skirt for Gen Z. I was like, okay, well, I guess I can wear it as a belt because I'm going to wear it on top of something else. Yeah. And it's also reversible so that it's like, oh, you're getting two skirts in one. So there's always a strong intentional process attached to how we design everything that we do. So process is key for us.
Okay, so you mentioned something about how you try to minimize waste, and it seems very intentional. So I want you to tell us, how do you navigate the fashion ecosystem in Africa while ensuring the ethical practices and environmental responsibility?
Good question. I think, first of all, one thing I always say about designing and producing within the sub-Saharan context, at least from the countries I've gone to, the designers I've interacted with across cities, is that without it being something that we're actively trying to do, our processes just encourage minimal waste production. First of all, we don't have industries. We don't have like factories everywhere that are producing en masse, except for maybe school uniforms. So when a designer is producing, you're never going to get a designer who's going to start and say, I want to produce 1,000 units of one product to start with. We don't have the infrastructure to support it. We don't have, and while that starts as a negative thing, I feel like more and more we should champion that, we should cherish that. We don't have that infrastructure. It allows us to be more creative in how we produce. So I don't have enough tailors to say I want to produce 1,000 units in one day. I just don't have it. I don't have enough resources to say I want to go to my dyers and say produce 100,000 yards of fabric in 1 week. It just naturally doesn't happen. I think the thing we should challenge ourselves to is to ensure that as we grow, we don't overgrow, because we aren't at the stage where we can say, oh, we have to minimize production. It's more like when you finally blow and you have those huge orders, how do you ensure that you're still being responsible, you're still ensuring that the resources around you are still being used responsibly? And for us, that's why we have the pre-order model, is that we always want to ensure that we're not producing more than there is demand for. So I'm not going to go and say, oh, let's produce 2,000 units when I don't know who's going to buy yet. Yeah. So I mean, for a lot of clients, it'd be frustrating to have to wait 2 weeks to get your product. But for us, it means that when we go to the dyer and say, dye 100 yards for us, we know exactly who is buying those 100 yards. We're not just stocking it or wasting it somewhere.
Thank you so much. So it is no doubt that Dye Lab is renowned for its iconic products, which seamlessly blends traditional with modern style. My question is, how do you get your inspiration for these iconic products, and how do you maintain and preserve and celebrate the cultural narratives behind that?
It was like two questions. How do we inspiration? First is, I mean, My dad is a big source of my inspiration. My dad has always worn agbada since,
That's
like,
beautiful.
that's my biggest memory of him. In
Wow.
Ankara, agbada is every day. And I remember it was once like I remember telling him that, oh, why don't you line your agbada with a different color? And he
Yeah.
looked at me like, something
What are you
I've been
talking
doing
about?
since. Like, what are you talking about? You just say that you want to copy me. So that's always been something that is a core memory for me. So, and how he wears it daily. It wasn't like special occasion. You know, sometimes traditional dress is being seen as something you wear for special occasion. And for me, the inspiration was how do we make traditional dress something that is
Every day.
I want to wear it to pick up my daughter at school. I want to wear it to lunch. I want to wear it when I'm traveling. I want to wear it everywhere. I want to wear it like anywhere I am. It needs to be recognizable or comfortable and contemporary enough to be able to connect in any culture that you're in. So our inspiration is really from everyone around us. Like really dialogue is really that. Dialogue is
Community.
it really is community. It really is I'm here now and I'm gonna see what everyone is wearing. I'm like, oh, how can we dialogue that is what I'm gonna go away with. Like I always think of a person in my mind of like I see this person, how they dress every day. How do you connect that with dialogue? You wear pants every day. How do I make you a pair of pants that you can wear every day, anywhere? Like you're going to a party, you're going to bed, you're wearing the same product.
Yeah.
So it really comes from that idea, and it's really deliberate because it's also us. It's what we wear every day. Like I want to say I wear it because my brand is Dialab, but it really isn't. It's like I have my Dialab as my pajamas, my Dialab as I'm going out to a party, my Dialab. Like what Dialab am I going to wear when I'm coming to this talk is like something maybe a bit darker today, and then I can wear with these shoes. So it's really like inspiration from everyone. And in terms of keeping things contemporary, we live in a contemporary city. Lagos is like amazingly fashionable. It's just such a melting pot of inspiration. Everyone is so stylish, and I don't mean those who can afford high-end brands. Everybody is so stylish. From your hair to your shoes to your nails, everyone
To the
is
makeup.
bringing it daily. So you're going on the street and you're like, whew, that is so cool. Like I want to stop and take a picture
It's
without
cool.
embarrassing that person. So and it's all individual, right? It's not just everyone is wearing the same sort of style. Everyone is like you can be in full trad and still look fully amazing, or wear fully streetwear and still look individual. So inspiration is every day.
Thank you for telling us that. I love the reference of your dad being your inspiration. I think that's really beautiful because our fathers play a huge role in our lives,
Fair enough.
even with fashion.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Can you differentiate or tell us what differentiates rather Dye Lab from the already existing traditional brands?
What do you mean by traditional brands?
Like we have some brands that make like traditional wear. I don't want to mention names here because that's not the focus. But yeah, we have brands that make traditional wears, but no one really does it the way you do it. And I think that already says a lot. But we want you to tell us concretely what differentiates your brand from other traditional brands.
I don't know. I don't compare our brand to other traditional brands. So it's a strange one to try and figure out a differentiation. I think of our brand as very individual. I don't compare it to traditional or contemporary brands. I mean, I guess we're somewhere in the middle of both, right? Because we use a lot of, we're inspired by a lot of traditional dress. But beyond fashion, I think of Dialab as a movement, a lifestyle. If I want you to take anything away from Dialab, it is not to go and create another Dialab. It is to be inspired by how we decided we're not doing this way, we're going to do it this way. So we're not going to, one of the big things for me was I did not want to depend on any international product as for my raw material. I didn't want to import fabric. I didn't want to import anything. I wanted everything to be done. I didn't want to be affected by forex at all. Like if I'm affected at all, I wanted it to be in a positive way, i.e. I'm making more forex versus like I'm having to spend more forex to do anything. So beyond the clothing, I think Dialab, I hope what you see in Dialab is that it is a brand that has been able to create from within, but is globally relatable as a brand, as a product. So it's like you see the X and O's, and you know anybody in the world is going to recognize that as a print. You see the colors, and you're like, those are beautiful colors, regardless of they're traditional or international. It's so beyond fashion, it's what is dial up? How do you dial up your life? How do you dial up yourself? Is how you should think about it.
Okay, so just to know more and learn more, you mentioned you don't compare the brand with any other brand. It's about individuality and authenticity.
Yeah.
So how do you navigate the markets? Like, because I think if you have a brand, you're also learning about the markets where you're selling. So how do you navigate the markets, even with the fact that you don't compare with other brands? And also you mentioned something about how it being so authentic affects it globally.
Yeah.
Tell us in particular how this has impacted Dialab on a global scale, global following, global audience. So 2 questions right there.
How you navigate. So, like I said at the start, Dialab started as an experiment for me. I wasn't aiming at a particular market. I didn't say, I want to target 20 a specific demographic. It was I wanna create a product. I want to create something that is inspired by everything I know and everything I've learned. So I didn't really say I'm going to target this market or that market. And what that has allowed in that openness is that what we found out with Dialab is Dialab really transcends generations. It's like you can wear, your mom can wear, your daughter can wear. That's one of the most beautiful things that we've discovered, and it's allowed us to continue to create like that, to not say it has to be this market. It's more around what type of person are you? Are you curious? Are you interested in wearing what is yours? Are you interested in championing that? Are you interested in being comfortable? So these are the things that sort of inspire how we create. So our target market is really across the board. Like, I know husbands and wives that fight for the same pair of trousers. I know daughters that my one of my friends would tell me, my daughter has stolen my bag again. So it really feels like that we don't want to try and limit it to one target market, and it should almost sit in your wardrobe next to every other item. It's not Dialab or another brand. It's Dialab and another brand. It's like, I want to wear Dialab today, tomorrow I want to wear another brand. Yeah, so it really feels like that. It should continue to champion what we mean when we say community around clothing. So it's like, and you see that a lot in how we collaborate. We collaborate across the board. If I want to make shoes, I'm not going to go and make my own shoes. I'm going to collaborate with someone who makes shoes. Because it's not I don't want it to be, it's not a competition for us. It's a championing of everyone together. Like, how do we grow this thing together? And how do you grow your brand? How do I grow my brand?
Thank you so much for letting us know that. Now we're going to move forward to collaborations, because now we're there. So collaborations with British brands like Anya Ironmatch has really shown Dialab's ability to bridge the cultural gap while still maintaining its authenticity. Can you tell us how you approach collaborations to ensure mutual respect and avoid cultural appropriation?
How do we approach it? So I think one of the core things is, first of all, the two brands have to have mutual respect even before we collaborate. Like, do you like my brand? Do I like your brand? Are you genuine in your brand? And am I genuine in my brand? Anya Highmark, for example, was a brand that Ozzy and I just independently, we were already obsessed about. Like, we used to talk about that brand and say, oh, I want to create experiences like Anya Heinmack. And then them randomly approaching us was such case met for us. It was like, where did this come from? And even in that, one of the core things about that collaboration was, in our first meeting, what they said was, we want to create our own type of kaftan. We don't want to make an agbada. Agbada is not us. What is the London girls kaftan? What is our own what is our own silhouette? Where would she wear it to? How would she wear it? She wouldn't wear it every day in London because London is 3/4 of the year is quite cold. So it started in that, and that allowed for an open conversation around what we felt looked like a London girl's idea of of an agbada, and also staying true to everything that our series recognizes, to down to the sustainability, down to how we print, designing our own prints ourselves, and then just infusing some of the Anya Heinmack aesthetic into that. So that made it it's one of the easiest collaborations I've ever done. Like, I still can't believe how easy it was, but I think that came from a place where we were very sure of who we were as a brand. We weren't confused about what we wanted to do. We were very, very clear on this is what we don't do. And I think that's an important thing to know as a brand, is like, what would you not do versus what will I do? Because you should always stay open about what you can do, but you should be able to say, actually,
I'm not doing that.
That's not me. That's never going to be me. Why? Maybe you've had an experience with it. Maybe it clashes with your core stories around how you produce or how you process. But you should always have those. My don'ts are important as a brand.
Okay, that is noted. I will be taking notes. Okay, so I want you to help us distinguish what cultural appropriation is and what cultural appreciation is, because it can easily be crossed. There's a thin line where cultural appreciation can easily turn to cultural appropriation.
I don't know. Honestly, it's one of those that I navigate it on a case by case basis, because I've seen collaborations or appropriation products that I think, why would you do that? And then you dig deeper into why they did it, and maybe they were a bit tone deaf in their product, but the core idea behind why they wanted to do is like, with fashion, you're always inspired by anything. You're inspired by, like, I make kimonos, right?
Yeah.
I'm a Nigerian brand making kimonos. Am I appropriating kimonos? So even I still ask myself that,
question.
right? Like, every day I've done it with Adire, I've added my twist to it, but it's still a kimono and it's still another culture's traditional dress. So I don't know that there is a core answer for me. I think it's maybe when you take references without mentioning those references, without highlighting, without understanding the references you've used in your appreciation. But it's a tricky one for me to help anyone decide on, because I'm still navigating myself. And I think it's one of those things that you have to decide for yourself individually, what is appropriation and what is appreciation, because it just changes. It changes with every single time you engage with it.
So basically, cultural appropriation is when you don't appreciate the culture. Okay, we're going to move on to the next question.
Okay.
Dye Lab's direct-to-consumer model challenges traditional retail norms. What advantages does this approach offer, and how has it impacted customer loyalty and brand engagement?
So Dialab D2C, I think our D2C is a result of being in Nigeria. I would love for a buyer to come and say, let me retail for you, but we're in a space where we don't have enough retailers in between, and with the incidence of social media, it just everybody's a consumer now. Like you can't. When I started Dialab, I actually wanted to only retail via a third party because I was so protective of my personal space that I didn't want it to be something I was doing daily. But clients find you like, hey, I know you're the one that does Dialab. I want to order. I don't want to go to Temple. I don't want to go to Alhambra. I want to buy directly from you. And so you have to then create a channel for that to happen whereby they can order directly from you. So the D2C is more as a result of the demand, and as a result, it's like we reacted to what was presented to us. And yes, what that has allowed is, again, we're able to always fine tune our processes daily. Like someone will come to us with a comment and say, hey, why don't you do this, this, this? And then we're like, oh, let's think about it. So D2C allows you to be very quick to react, very quick to innovate and change on the go. Whereas, like, I guess if you have a third party that is not allowing you all of that information first, and it might be slower, your reaction, there are products we put out that we've never put out again because everyone's like, no, that doesn't work. It doesn't work like that. Can you change it? Can you add this? So it's allowed us to really interact with our clients, to really know them very well and know what they're wearing Dialab for. And it really allows for a lot of engagement. And with clients, they also feel like they know you as a brand. You're not just some entity over there. You know, like this is a human brand. It is an organism that is breathing, and you're able to interact with it. You're able to contribute to it. You almost feel like your clients are your shareholders as well, because they're able to really impact how you grow and how you continue to create. So yeah, it allows us to be a better brand just in general, to be more empathetic as well.
Okay, thank you so much. So we're rounding up questions soon, and I just want to ask, what is your future aspiration for Dialab?
My future aspiration for Dialab, as I said, for us, Dialab is beyond fashion. It's, for us, I want it to be a case study of how to design intentionally in sub-Saharan Africa, how to create within this space and create in a way that is natural and comfortable to you. So if you look at Dialab in 10 years, I don't want to think, oh, remember the Dialab Agbada, remember Dialab, remember what it represented. And so for us, there is a future where we want to create a Dialab, a space that is a laboratory that anyone can come into and experiment in and create their own product and contribute to the narrative around how to design sustainably, how to design responsibly, how to design for yourself, for functionality, and for longevity.
Thank you. We're going to take the last question now. What advice would you give new emerging business owners or brand owners that are trying to find their niche or trying to reimagine cultural narratives for themselves? What would you say they should do and not do?
I think don't do it alone. That's the thing I would always say. Never try. Like, you can, but the power of community, of reaching out to your friends, to your family, to people around you to ask for help, to ask for advice, to ask for contribution. You know, there's a lot of us where we can be very proud about things, about like, oh, I want to do it myself. I want to keep it a secret. I want to nurture it by myself because I don't want everybody to know until it's perfect, until it's ready.
That's kind of like an African thing. Don't let them.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not. It's so, you say it's an African thing, but it's not. It really is not. It's something that we've sort of now developed as an African thing. If you think of African cultures traditionally, it is really about community. We live in community, we exist in community. There's a reason why there's a saying called "it takes a village," because it really does. So my biggest advice, at least for myself and my experience of Dialab, is don't do it alone. Like, I don't know, I'm sure other people have the ways where they've grown their brand. What I've seen as Dialab is we could never be where we are if I had tried to do it. Like, even with the idea of Ozzy joining Dialogue in its second year is don't do it alone. I could have said, oh no, just be my friend, just keep supporting me. But like, no, you are an amazing person and you have all the skills that I don't have. Please join, please come and contribute. So that's so important to me. It's one of my biggest lessons. So that's what I would say.
Thank you so much. How are you feeling?
Yeah, good. I think I shared Crystal.
How you all feeling? You feeling good? Well, I can feel the energy. Like, yeah, we need to be here. How are you feeling? Amazing. So now we're going to take some questions from you guys. Any question you have for us, we can take them now. Yes? 1 second, so we can hear you better.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah. I heard you manage 4 brands, so I want to know how you uphold your standards for so long, like over the years. This is my question.
So I only manage 1 brand now. Over the years, I've had 4 brands. But I think the question still applies of how you manage to uphold standards. I think the first thing around creating those standards is understanding your environment. So I'll give you an example. When I ran Grey, I was always fighting with my tailors, always, because I was introducing styles to them that they were foreign to them. Like, they've never worn this thing before that I'm trying to design. This, something is flying here, something is poking out here. It's like, what is this? Like, so there's always an issue around quality control, around getting it right each time. But with Dye Lab, one of the things is, I don't know any tailor that doesn't know how to make an agbada, right? I don't know any tailor that doesn't know, they call it Kampala. I don't know any tailor that doesn't know Ashoke. So these, now I've come to a place where I've met them in the middle. I've met them where they understand. And then from there, I can now innovate. I can say, remember how you make the agbada? Now add this on it. Now do this to it. Remember how you wear your filler with the Ashoke? Don't cut it like that. Cut it this way. So that fusion of what they understand and what I want is how I manage to continue to improve standards. So that's across the board, even with customer service. Is like, oh, remember how you talk to that other brand? Talk to us like that too. Like, it's sort of like just meeting you and then using that to as a base for how you start a conversation to create and design your standards.
Thank you.
Well,
Next question. Please let's raise up our hands where we want to. Thank you.
I want to know what it would take to work with iLab in terms of collaboration and as well, let's say a creative now, maybe a photographer, a cinematographer, want to collaborate with your company. What does it take to make that happen?
what does it take to collaborate with Dye Lab?
Yes.
I mean, I think I don't know that there's a special formula to how we do it. I think it's like reaching out is always like a most important part. I over here reached out, wanted to model for Dye Lab. At some point we're like, hey, come on, model for Dye Lab. And now he's a Dye Lab model. Give it a round of applause, guys. There's no, it really is, first of all, being exemplary in what you do and then reaching out to us and like, you can pitch to us and say, hey, I want to do this. I have this idea. What do you guys think? It might not happen right away, but there's always room for it. There's always openness for it.
Yeah.
Question?
I wanted to know, how do you feel about people that, I guess, create similar type products to you? So like, for example, like I go up to people and I'm like, oh, are you in Dye Lab? And they're like, oh, no, it's something else. So it's like, do you feel like they're copying you? Do you feel like it's like cultural celebration? And like, how do you try and like make yourself different from that?
So when it first started happening, I was so terrified. I was like, this is the end of Dye Lab. This is, everybody's going to copy and then there's no uniqueness to Dye Lab anymore. And I would go between anger and fear, like I'd just be really upset. And then at some point, I guess, I still feel it, by the way, it still comes up sometimes. But since then, I guess I've sort of moved to a place where I have to see it as people are inspired by Dye Lab, right? Otherwise, I'm going to just stay in a room and be miserable all my life. So you have to, I moved to that. And the other thing I moved to in my thinking about it, especially with the Agbada and the Adire, is that what an amazing thing that people want to copy what is theirs, right? It's like, I'm not copying Gucci or Dolce and Gabbana. I'm copying Adire and Ashoke. You know, it's like, we all want to wear it. That's so amazing. So I have to, now that's where my head is like, okay, I see it as appreciation, but also I know that it can never be a dialogue, like, right? All the elements that go into what we create cannot be replicated except you're working with dialogue. All the thinking that I've just spoken about is so deep and so intentional that we have to keep it there. We always have to move forward and keep it in that direction. Every year, when I hear, is this the year people stop buying dial-up? The question comes up, but it's like, no, we just keep innovating, keep thinking of how to continue to express ourselves in a genuine way. And yeah, stay with it.
That's such a beautiful mindset. Like, okay, we're not copying Gucci, we're copying our own thing.
Yeah.
And for you to even give that away freely. That's so nice. Do we have any other questions?
Hello, I'm a very big fan, and I'm always fascinated about how you use colors. It always blows my mind whenever I buy one. I'm like, oh, it's just crazy. But I want to know, how long does it take you? How does it work? Like, how do you play with it? I love colors. I love art, so I'm always wearing that stuff. So I want to know, how long will it take to make it do like something like this? Like, oh, I would decide I'm doing this color, but how would you get the pattern?
So I do this every day. I mix if you come to our workshop, I'm on the floor like mixing the colors, because sometimes when a team member meets, like, why did you put yellow there? Yellow doesn't go in that. I study color as well, so I have a strong affinity to color mixes. But how do we do it? Like, I think also one thing that helps us first is there's some colors that we've tried to get, we haven't gotten when we want to dye. The second thing is clients help us. So if we do like a color range for like maybe one pop-up and we get like 100 because I want that color, that becomes a color that we put in our normal rotation because you've told us that you like it. So it's always, and some clients will come and say, oh, I like this, but can you make it a yellow neck or something? Can you use yellow ashok? And then we'll try it out. And oh, that actually looks nicer. Let's put that in the rotation because I think that will work better. So it's like I said, it's a growing organism. We're always experimenting. We're always staying in that space of nothing is permanent. Nothing is defined. Like blue is still my favorite color, but Ozzy is like, I can't see blue anymore. I've seen too much blue. So, and she'll come back around and then I'll be like, oh, I can't see blue anymore. So it's always, it's daily. It's a daily experimentation. Thank you.
We're going to take 2 more questions. Okay.
Thank you.
So I'm a big fan of the brand, and just listening to you talk about the story, everything, it really resonated with me. So my question really is, because I know Dialab is really big on experience. I see the pop-ups, it's always different for the one in Lagos, the different, like, what really goes into the thought process coming up with all of that? Because even your response to her question, listening to your customers, trying to create a different experience for them, the design, how you're able to infuse art. Because every dial-up, every kaftan I see, I feel like it's art, it's an expression of art, but still being able to like bring art into it, being able to infuse all those elements, like really what's thought process behind that? Like what's the inspiration? What drives that for the brand?
I think, yes, like you said, experience is very important to us, and it doesn't mean just in the pop-up. It's like when you wear the item, how do you feel? Like, do you feel like like I always feel like I'm home. I mean, like my little cocoon, and it goes into everything of like having pockets, for example, being able to move, being relaxed, knowing that especially if I'm not in the, like, no, everywhere. Someone's like, oh, I like what you're wearing. And it's like, yeah, thank you, stylish. And then you get really excited to talk about it. So we think about that, like, we want you to have that experience. And so if we make a product that doesn't, like when we wear it, doesn't feel like that experience. It's like, okay, this is not a product we want to sell. The other thing with physical experiences is any city we go to, we try and reach out to, I guess what I would say, maybe like stakeholders in that community. And for fashion, it's in retail, right? So you go to another city, you're like, oh, what is a nice store that we can have a pop-up in? And then we'll reach out to them. They will give us advice on how to interact with their community. Oh, they don't bring black. Nobody wears black here because it's funeral colors. Or don't do a pop-up on a Saturday because everybody goes to the beach on Saturday, so they're not going to come. Things like that help us like understand, oh, don't serve cocktails here because it's a Muslim city. Don't, things like that really, or bring scarves, bring turbans, or make it bring food, like everybody wants to experience. So it really is, again, what I said about don't try not to do it alone, because if we tried, we would just replicate the same thing everywhere, and it would not take into account the individuality of that space that we're going into. So it's constantly thinking about it, never saying this is now how we do it. Like you can say this is how we don't do it, but never this must be like this all the time. It's like be open to trying to change and try new things.
Thank you so much. We have one more question. In front here.
Alright, so my question is about how you're able to streamline, because I can imagine doing this business for almost 5 years now.
Mm-hmm.
You've done so many designs, and you would match one pattern with another pattern with another pattern. How do you mentioned how you're trying to make things easier for your tailors, but doesn't it get to the point where you guys have just done so much that it becomes overwhelming? How are you able to avoid that? How are you able to plan? And how do you avoid what I ordered versus what I got? Because maybe someone saw this pattern this way, or you remixed it.
Yeah.
Person feel able to accept that, okay, it changed it, or do you only deliver the same item that you uploaded?
So we have two, I guess, like our retail is two-pronged. We have our catalog, that this is a catalog that we change maybe like every 6 weeks, like, oh, but this is what you can order. But even within that catalog, it's dying, right? So today the color comes out a deep yellow, tomorrow it's a bit lighter. So we have all the disclaimers that we have to issue before we take your order of like, hey, just so you know, it's hand dyed, this might happen, this might not happen, the color might be a bit lighter. But beyond that, if a customer is not happy with it, we do allow you to return it back to us, because it's not because it's a bad product, it's because it's not what you expected in your mind. And so I have no problem with the idea that I'm able to still sell that product and make you a new one. But it's just like, are you okay to wait again for the 3 weeks? Because that's the only thing that's allowed us is like, we have a long wait time for pre-orders when we do it.
Thank you so much. That is the last. By the way, I can't wait for Barbie to wear Lila. You remember the designer, the Barbie?
Yeah.
I was like, I can't wait for Barbie to wear the designer. That's my week too. Thank you so much, guys, for your questions. This has been very insightful. So we just want you to help us recap 3 takeaways for all of us here to take with us when we leave this room, leave this conference.
I think first, I would say prioritize your process. Like, don't fixate too much on, fixate on it, but prioritize the process of making your final product. How do you navigate all the steps to get to that? Like so that you can ensure that you're able to rinse and repeat going forward. The second thing is have your don'ts. Like the things that I don't want to do, I don't like this doesn't work for my brand. Have your don'ts. And the third, very, very important, is lean on community. Don't do it alone. Try not to do it alone. Those are my 3.
Thank you so much. God bless. Thank you so much, guys, for listening. I've learned so much. I hope you have too. And thank you for your patience and for being a cooperative audience.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Can we please give them one big round of applause? That was such an amazing session.